Cool Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yamin of Revolution. Aliens and a new virus. What's really going on here? Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means you hit the like button. You in the House of Revolution. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform, y'all. Some very suspicious, strange things is going on. We haven't had a chance to check it out. Let's get right into the content. Salute, family.
3 people died following this outbreak, now confirmed by the World Health Organization to be the Andes strain of hantavirus. In rare instances, it can spread from person to person.
Not easy to spread, but still a big fear out there. Camila joins us now. Camila, what happens to the people still on board this cruise ship once they dock at the Canary Islands?
Yeah, Tom. So the ship is still days away. Spain's health ministry says they will get medical screenings and then go to their home countries.
What? No, stop. No. Camilla. No, they won't. No, they won't. They were on that boat. They are to be killed.
We're not going to condone murder here, but Tim Dillon is, in fact, a national treasure. I'll just say that. So the hantavirus cruise ship officially docked in Spain's Canary Islands early this morning, and we're being told now that passengers are on their way back to their respective home countries. And I think a lot of people are wondering,
what are you doing?
I'm packing a laptop for a new Maestro student.
Oh, what is Maestro?
It's the first AI university. Have you?
why? Americans on board hantavirus cruise ship to be repatriated to the United States. Timmy is not going to like this. It says right here, the 17 Americans on board the hantavirus-stricken cruise ship MV Hondias have disembarked the vessel after it docked in Tenerife on Sunday and are now being repatriated to the United States. Upon their arrival in Spain, medical teams from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, awaited and interviewed the passengers whose identities have not been publicly disclosed and who have not tested positive for the virus about their exposure on the cruise. The passengers are due to arrive in Nebraska on a special chartered flight, the authorities said. Nebraska is home to the National Quarantine Unit and the Nebraska Biocontainment Unit. Describing the process following the Americans' arrival at Omaha, the acting CDC director, Jay Bhattacharya, told CNN on Sunday, quote, "We're going to interview them and assess them for risk." Sorry, why wouldn't we just keep them in the Biocontainment Center until we know for sure what the hell is going on? The CDC director says that the passengers can either stay in Nebraska if they'd like, or if they want to, go back home if their home situation allows it, and then safely fly them without exposing other people on the way. How can you guarantee that? Why would we not just, once again, keep them in the biocontainment center? Like, why would we send them there in the first place if we were just going to set them loose into the wild right away? I got to fly this week, and I'm sorry, I do not really want to be sitting next to hantavirus. They keep telling us that this disease does not spread easily, but if we look at the numbers, there were 147 passengers on that ship. 8 of them are confirmed to have hantavirus. 3 of them have died, which is a case fatality rate of 38%.
That's crazy.
Like I said, I'm not a medical expert, but it does seem like 8 out of 150 seems like a pretty decent clip of spread for something the experts are saying. It's almost impossible to spread from human to human, even with this Andes strain of hantavirus. Professor Brett Weinstein is asking some questions. He says, how are there 8 hantavirus cases and 3 deaths on a ship of 150? Either the ship or its suppliers had a serious rodent problem, or this is some new strain of hantavirus. Fair question, I think. And this is a possibility that I explored in my last video, that perhaps we're seeing something a little different. Maybe something new, something novel, perhaps even something that's been, shall we say, enhanced from lab experimentation. Research into the hantavirus often involves studying viral entry, replication, and pathogenesis to develop vaccines and therapies. While much research focuses on understanding natural virus behavior, some experiments aim to enhance, reduce, or alter viral characteristics like transmission or virulence to better prepare for potential outbreaks. Then it goes on to the key areas of hantavirus research. The Andes virus, which is the one that we're dealing with right now, ANDV, studies on ANDV, the only hantavirus known to transmit between humans, are critical for understanding pandemic potential. Researchers use lab models, including stem cell-derived organoids of lungs, hearts, and brains to study how the virus infects tissues. And then the little footnote, this is where it gets interesting, the studies mentioned, such as those published in PLOS Pathogens in 2025, are typically aimed at improving understanding of the virus rather than intentionally creating a more dangerous pathogen for malicious purposes, but they still fall under the broad definition of gain-of-function research. So no, we're not doing gain-of-function research, but we also technically kind of are. Cool. So there you go. Officially, no, but also kind of, yeah, allegedly. Addressing concerns over the hantavirus being compared to the COVID-19 pandemic, Bhattacharya, the CDC director, says, quote, "This is not COVID, and we do not want to cause a public panic over this. We want to treat it with the hantavirus protocols that were successful in containing outbreaks in the past." And this is where the story, once again, does not make any sense, because you're telling us that this is no big deal, not a public health worry, but if you follow the money, the market is actually telling us a completely different story. Barron's, how hantavirus made Moderna a must-own stock again. Sort of a weird market reaction if we're not expecting this virus to spread. And it just so happens that on May 8th, 2026, Moderna shares surged approximately 12 to 18% following announcements of the positive data regarding their mRNA pipeline, which coincided, coincidentally, with the reports of a hantavirus outbreak on a cruise ship. What perfect timing. Now, this next part is quite interesting. An NBC News report stated that prior efforts to develop a hantavirus vaccine have stalled because outbreaks tend to be rare and occur in poor countries where pharma is less likely to invest. Quote, "Our funding agencies don't put a lot of money into this because it's likely not to be the cause of the next pandemic or epidemic," Sabra Klein, a Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health molecular microbiology and immunology professor, told the news outlet. And that right there is why nobody trusts big pharma, nobody trusts the government anymore, nobody trusts the media, because nothing is ever done in this country for any other reason than making money. Right, let's dissect this for a second. We're told that we previously didn't have a hantavirus vaccine because outbreaks are rare, and if they do occur, they only occur in poor and developing countries, so there's no money to be made there. But now that the disease has, for some reason, been just allowed to enter this country, the development of the hantavirus vaccine is all of a sudden sparking massive financial interest. Am I suggesting that public health officials are toying with the idea of introducing a deadly disease so big pharma could reap the financial rewards? No, I would never do such a thing. But it would be kind of convenient if all of a sudden there was a human-to-human transmissible strain of hantavirus that was suddenly, shall we say, endemic in the United States and in Western Europe, places where it did not exist prior to this cruise ship outbreak, and more importantly, markets where Big Pharma currently makes 70 to 80% of their money. This is Dr. Pierre Kory. Take a listen.
What actually kind of intrigued me more, Talia, about what you said is a colleague told me that there was like 100,000 articles written around the world on hantavirus in the last couple of days. And that's not typical for a hantavirus outbreak. Certainly there's always attention and people get scared, but like that's the other thing with COVID. It was COVID 24/7. And then when you said in your intro about how it seems to be driven by influencers, I'm sorry if I'm getting too like, I don't know. I actually never want to use the word tin hat because I'm not a tin hat, but these patterns are anomalous. Why, with just this little outbreak of a few cases, suddenly like it's consuming the world's media cycle? Like, for instance, I'm on talking about it today. It's because it's being driven by something.
I don't know about you, but my spidey senses are also going off right now because something just doesn't feel right. Something feels really weird about this whole thing. And unfortunately, we're all kind of operating in the dark right now. Everybody's got their own theories, from this is 100% fake and staged to let's nuke the boat. We don't know what the truth is right now, but I think this is a critical time when we need to scrutinize every piece of information we're being given, analyze all these data points, whether it be from the public health angle or the financial angle, to hopefully determine, Is this something I should worry about? I mean, more importantly, we're all thinking in the back of our minds here, could something nefarious be happening? And how can I best protect my family and friends? Once again, I will be keeping my eye on this story as it continues to develop. That is it for me this week. What do you guys think is going on here? Do you think our public
have a few things to talk about in today's video, like for example, quote unquote aliens. It definitely seems like the topic is not slowing down. Matter of fact, we have another person they're trying to connect to these missing and deceased scientists. This one though gets really weird, but first I do want to go ahead and talk about this cruise ship that has been infected with the hantavirus. As of this recording, 3 people on this cruise ship have passed away, and a few others are quite ill. I do believe one is in critical condition. But what is the hantavirus? I don't think I've ever heard of it before. It could be because I'm from the United States and it's not a common thing here. But looking this up further, the very first time in recent years anyway that we heard of anybody being impacted by the hantavirus was back in 2025 during the very bizarre and mysterious passing of Gene Hackman and his wife. It's so rare in the United States that over 30 years between 1993 and 2023, there were only 890 cases reported. But anyway, the first time I ever heard of this personally was during the whole thing with Gene Hackman's wife, Betsy Arakawa. It was very mysterious. She was found deceased in the bathroom. Her dog was deceased right next to her. Pill bottles everywhere. Nobody could figure out what was going on. And investigators, they made the final determination is that she passed away from the hantavirus. They didn't know how she contracted it because the house was pretty locked down. They said she must have went outside and breathed in some kind of rat particle, whether it was rat feces or rat urine, and the particle went into her lungs. And then that was that. And now we're hearing it again when it comes to this cruise ship. And I just can't help but feel, and I know everything with me is a psyop because I do feel at the end of the day, we live in a heavily scripted world. But just because I believe something may be a psyop is not me saying that there is not something happening on this cruise ship. I am sure there are people on this cruise ship that have become ill and others on board that are very worried. But I happen to take a look at everything as a whole, not just the news story itself, but how people, the public, are responding to said news story. Because you have multiple people leaving comments throughout different news agencies, different websites, different videos talking about this, saying, I don't understand why people are still going on cruises. After hearing this news story, I'll never go on a cruise. When I think I want to go on a cruise, the universe gives me a sign and they're talking about this news story. And I just feel like this is all a part of the plan to stop people from traveling. You also have people pointing out the fact that if it could happen on this ship, where you have to have a good amount of money to board, it's one of those 45-day cruises that go to different countries, even other continents like Antarctica, then it could basically happen on any ship. And it's really a nightmare situation because nobody wants them to dock, nobody wants them to disembark because there's no known cure for this virus. The only treatment there is to capture it early, and nobody knows how long these people have been incubated with it. What's also fueling the flames of suspicion even further is the fact that when it comes to the hantavirus, it is extremely, extremely rare for a person to transmit it to another person, to the point you even have some out there saying that it's not even possible at all. Now we're hearing that these people on board this ship may have transferred it to each other. Another thing people are pointing out in multiple comments that they find strange. Now, there are 147 people on board this cruise ship. 88 of those are passengers. But the whole time this high tense situation has been happening where these people are basically stuck, only one person has been speaking out and filming.
This is where the lobby is.
In a video posted at the start of the voyage, an American travel blogger took his followers on a tour of the cruise ship, now stuck, unable to dock and to unload passengers amid a suspected hantavirus outbreak.
And what's happening right now is very real for all of us here.
In a new tearful video, the blogger talks about the fears on board after 3 passengers died.
There's a lot of uncertainty, and that's the hardest part.
Among the 100.
So yeah, that is weird. And other people have been pointing out how weird this happens to be too. Where are the other passengers? He is the only one that's ever been seen on this boat. He is the only one speaking out. Don't the other passengers have phones?
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right? You can play on your tablet too.
What people are also finding odd is that the company that owns the ship, Oceanwide, had to be on his live when he initially boarded the ship and was showing his audience a tour. So that's pretty odd, right? Over 100 people on board, only one person speaking out about the situation. But I'm sure as more and more people begin to notice the strangeness about that, there will possibly be more passengers on board speaking on camera. So again, not only is it a bizarre situation, you only have one passenger filming. We have a virus that's typically not known to spread human to human, yet on this cruise ship, it has something with no known cure. And now you have people saying, see, this is why I don't go on cruise ships. And at the same time, it's like, well, what about planes? And now we're hearing that Spirit has completely collapsed. They are no more. One of the cheapest ways to travel by air. And anytime I took a plane, I always took Spirit, never had any problems with them. You always see a lot of video footage of people having fights and so forth. But every time I've flown Spirit, I always had a good experience. And I mean, not only was it cheap to just go from point A to point B, but to me personally, another plus was the fact that they use mainly Airbus. We were hearing all those problems going on with Boeing, and Spirit Airlines never had a crash. And after 33 years at 3 o'clock in the morning, we heard they're finished. But it's really no surprise because it was ramping up in the news how they were facing financial troubles to the point that they were canceling multiple flight destinations at multiple airports. So the writing was really on the wall for Spirit. Now there's another low-cost carrier, which is Frontier, but interestingly enough, we're now getting news articles coming out that they may also be facing financial troubles due to the whole fuel situation. Delta Airlines is also having their own issues as well. Hundreds upon hundreds of flights are being canceled. This is also happening around the same time that many Spirit flights are being canceled as well. Matter of fact, on May 2nd alone, Delta almost had as many cancellations as Spirit. But when it comes to Delta, the cancellations and disruptions remain a mystery. There are some guesses, and it has to do with possibly issues behind the scenes with new employees, that the employees are having a meltdown. And of course, with other people looking to book to other airlines, this is going to spill over. Then it's like, well, what about my car? I can always drive my car. And now we're getting news coming out that by 2027, all new cars will have AI inside to make sure that you're not drunk, you're not tired to drive. If you are, it will not start. It'll give you problems, and people are really pushing back about that. We had one woman come out saying that she was driving a rental car internationally that already has this system, and the car told her to sit up straight so it can see her eyes at all times. If not, it's not going to start. And you have people asking the question, well, if this is something that's mandatory in all new cars, they don't want people driving without this system to make sure they're not drunk or tired, then what happens to the old cars? And I guess we just have to wait and see. Definitely interesting times indeed when it comes to the world of travel, but we did know that the closer we get to that 2030 agenda, the more and more we're going to go ahead and see some sort of crunch when it comes to traveling. And that's not me just saying that. It makes a lot of sense when you have the World Economic Forum this year saying this.
There's going to be people of means who are going to travel, and then there's going to be people maybe who are lesser means who might actually be able to use an Oculus or a Magic Leap or some other kind of device to travel to the same place, but from their own couch. But in many ways, it's actually going to create even more distance between those two people. That psychologically, and I think that we've experienced this through social media. In many ways, it's brought people closer in certain ways, but actually created this remarkable divide because it's even more visible. Actually, the divide.
So they were talking about preparing, planning, and how to deal with the psychological impacts of those when it comes to only the rich being allowed to travel. The psychological impact of if you want to travel, well, the best you're going to do is put a fan on in your living room at full blast and put a VR headset on. But moving on, it seems like we have another individual who is now deceased that they're trying to connect to UFOs and aliens, like all these missing and deceased scientists. But this time it involves a person who mysteriously ended up deceased 25 years ago, Chandra Levy. She was a Federal Bureau of Prisons intern, and while she was working for the federal agency, multiple rumors were flying left and right that she was having an affair with then Representative of California, Gary Condit. Chandra vanished in Washington, D.C., and sometime later, her remains were discovered in a park. just a few miles from her DC apartment. Now, one would say that this may have involved the affair, because when it comes to affairs, it usually doesn't go too well for either one or both parties involved.
Congressman Gary Condit.
I had nothing to do with her disappearance.
Condit refused to cooperate with investigators in the initial months following.
And what made things even more suspicious is that in 2009, a suspect was arrested, an individual named Ingmar Guandaku, I think that's how you pronounce it, but it was later tossed out in 2015 when it emerged that a key prosecution witness lied in his testimony. Now, I'm not saying Gary Condit did anything, but generally when it's about to be revealed that a politician is cheating with his wife with another person, which is something he finally admitted to doing, it was no longer just a rumor. Again, it usually doesn't go that well for that other person, but now we have Chandra Levy's parents speaking out to News Nation on May 1st, the anniversary of her passing, saying this.
But around the same time Chandra was in Washington, Dr. Stephen Greer had his UFO conference in the first couple weeks of May. He presented a lot of witnesses, a lot of whistleblowers on the UFO subject. And at that time, Chandra mentioned something that she knew about the UFOs, that Congressman Condit was on the committee to learn about UFOs.
Well, he's on the Central Higher Intelligence Committee,
yes.
And that she says, oh, he believes in UFOs like I do, and that he deals with this stuff. So then it left me thinking, knowing Chandra, she's very inquisitive. Could she have known something that she wasn't supposed to know? And
yes.
Could she have been wiped out because she knew too much? If you go back into history, Kennedy was killed. Marilyn Monroe, of course, they thought she had but maybe she was.
Yes, and Admiral Forrestal, many years before, and William Colby, the head of the FBI, the head of the CIA, they were all murdered. And of course, Stephen Greer has a list of other people involved in the intelligence on UFOs who were murdered back then. I know there's another list now, but this was in the early 2000s and long before that. So we can't say it was a part of the CIA that did it, but it's always suspicion because it sort of ruined Stephen Greer's conference when all the news came out about Chandra.
Well, by the way, I should let you know, I think he was just on my colleague's show right before this, Katie's show right before this, Dr. Stephen Greer. So you talking about it, this is very, very relevant right now. I mean, I'm sure you know, there's a big case going on. There's a big investigation about these missing and dead scientists. Yes. Are you, just to be clear,
we're very concerned.
Do you think there's a connection between Chandra and what we're seeing now?
You never know.
There certainly could be. We're not saying that's what it is, but it all sort of fits together.
Let me ask you this. Are you hoping that as this is getting a lot of attention and they're investigating this, that this will provide renewed interest or somehow have a connection into Chandra's case? Are you trying to communicate with the people investigating this?
No, you are the first person that we've really gone to speak publicly about this. I've been told that not to touch the subject.
Not to touch it, like but Danny Sheehan, who Stephen Greer's former lawyer, told us not to get too involved with it because a certain element of the CIA is getting rid of people who might be too involved with it.
There are a lot of people right now that are afraid. And they are people who have spent a lot of time in government work.
A lot of people are threatened, such as Tim Burchett, the congressman who's really interested in that. Tim Burchett has been told a lot of things, and he's sort of fearful of something happening to him.
So there's a lot involved.
Just to be clear, aside from the timing of what you just mentioned in terms of what happened with Chandra and and what was happening with the UFO community, is there any other evidence, anything else you can share with us about why you believe there might be this connection?
I don't know. It's something that I thought of 2-3 years ago. I was at Contact the Desert, and I felt a strong, intuitive thing coming from me that there's a possibility there may be a connection. We don't know what really goes on in the government. So many of us don't know the truth about many things. And as you know, the fuel situation and people who are controlling the politics of the world, they're not always given the truth.
Yeah, and I know President Trump wants to reveal it, but he's got to be careful because, you know, what happened to Kennedy and what happened to all these other people.
And I'm stepping out on a limb. I'm asking disclosure. Someone knows the truth of what happened to my daughter, our daughter, Chandra, and what has happened to a lot of other people that have disappeared, gone missing, that have demise in mysterious ways.
I want to take it back for a second.
It's kind of hard to talk about this interview because it's parents trying to make sense of their child being taken away from them, especially like in the manner of Chandra Levy. And you can still see and hear the hurt that these parents are going through. But I can't just help but see the suspicious timing of this now coming out. And according to the parents, they're not outright rejecting the idea of adding Chandra Levy with these scientists that have disappeared or ended up deceased under mysterious circumstances. And watching this interview, and again, the pain they're going through is unimaginable, but almost at certain times felt like they were told to say certain things. Like these are not the words coming from them. This is just how I felt like some of what they're saying is not their words. And if you look at it as a whole and you're trying, and I get also trying to connect any dots possible, even 25 years later, because you never get over that loss of your child. But looking at it as a whole, I mean, what seems a little bit more obvious, aliens and UFOs, or a politician cheating on his wife? When it came to Gary Condit, the timing is kind of suspicious because prior to her disappearance, it wasn't fully known that he was having an affair with her. It was just that rumors were circulating. And then after she disappeared and after she was found, then it came out that he was having an affair with this woman. What's even more interesting is that Chandra's parents, and looking at older articles, for example, this one from People where it says, in earlier interviews, they believe Condit lied earlier about his relationship with their daughter, and he still may be a key player in the investigation. But he was swept under the rug because 2.5 months after her disappearance, Condit took a polygraph test administered privately by a former FBI agent, and the FBI agent said that he passed with flying colors. Yeah, I wouldn't trust that one bit, and I'm sure the individual they did arrest was probably a hitman. But talking about aliens, the conversation is still ramping up within the government right before this disclosure.
I have seen evidence in a skiff that leads me to believe there are things we cannot explain, and I have observed things that are of non-human origin and creation. That's my opinion. Again, but there has been a declassification order from the president, and you will see as soon as that stuff comes up.
So do you think that the American public's going to be super surprised when this comes out, or is it going to be a bit of a nothing burger?
Well, I don't think it'll be a nothing burger, but, you know, we're not going to tell the American people what to make of it. But I think, you know, when, again, you saw my last hearing that I did with the task force where there was some footage that was entered into the archive, and it's pretty shocking for people.
If you had to just make a decision now about whether there really were, I guess, aliens moving among us with their strange machines that have all sorts of powers, do you think that's plausible?
I don't call them aliens, and I don't know what these things are that they're using, right? But I think that there's stuff that we have witnessed as members of Congress, been briefed on, that we cannot explain. And I will leave it at that because that's going to be coming out soon. And I think that the American people will have many of their questions answered.
So again, doubling down or tripling down in her latest interview, Anna Paulina Luna said that they are not aliens, or she doesn't call them aliens anyway. And, you know, we have the vice president calling them demons. We have the Pentagon saying that if there's knowledge of them, it could release demonic fears. So the question happens to be, what type of game is the government playing here? Because they are clearly moving away from these things being from another planet to now something more interdimensional, but they're not alien. But if they're not from this dimension, wouldn't they still be considered aliens? Because they would be considered foreign to our dimension. But given the fact that they're saying they're not aliens, even though they're interdimensional, makes me think there's something that have always been here. But when it comes to government, we have to be very careful with what they tell us.
Hey, listen to me. I'm just trying to print something from my printer that I own. My printer that I own with ink that I bought, purchased, and paper. And I can't print Without a subscription plan, they remotely shut off my printer until I paid $7.50 to print in my own home.
That's right. You will own nothing and you'll be happy. It's not me telling you this. It's the phrase published by the World Economic Forum. As we can see, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy is based on a 2016 essay by a Danish politician about a future in which a hypothetical person relies on the sharing economy for many of their needs. Oh, how lovely. The phrase from the article, Welcome to 2030, and the philosophies expressed within it have been used by critics who accuse the WEF of desiring restrictions on ownership of personal property. Oh, you don't say. And sadly, it's not just new printers requiring a subscription fee to use. Any new vehicle is going to drown you with subscriptions.
Soon, your car might not even be your car anymore. Automakers want to turn this thing you drive every day into a moving subscription. Cruise control, emergency brakes, heated seats, things already in your car, now all blocked by a paywall. And
all right, Lord, you can come back anytime now.
That video came from Shepherd for the Messiah. And now, while there are printers out there you can use without a subscription, they're becoming less and less prominent to these subscription-based printers. But he's right, 100% right. We are heading, like I said previously in my video, when it comes to the 2030 agenda, we are heading to an age where you'll own nothing and be happy, especially what they're doing with travel, what they're going to do with your car. I played this previous video on my other channel, Seconds of Horror, but it's still very important to show what's to come.
I've seen a few posts about this and I wanted to comment on it because I have a personal experience with it. It isn't something that's happening in the future, it's something that's happening now. I rented a car in Europe, and as the woman handed me the car keys, she said, this is a brand new car. And she was like super excited about it. She was like, it's 2026. It's a brand new car. And I was like, awesome. No one's had a chance to like fart or smoke in it. This will be great. And I'd driven it for a day or two, and I was getting on a highway. It was a 6-lane highway. And all of a sudden the gas stopped working, and I'm pressing on the gas. I can't get the car to go. So the car is dinging. It's making all this noise and I can't figure out what's going on. And I look at the dashboard, and in English, it says, sit up straight. We can't find your eyes. Why do you need to see my eyes? That was my first thought. And I'm short, so I sit low in the seat. And I guess, I don't know, maybe I'd been driving a while and I'd kind of slouch down more instead of sitting upright. And when I sat upright, the gas would work once again. And so I pressed the gas, but I was slowing down enough that it was going to cause a traffic hazard. And the thing is, it knew I wasn't asleep because I was pressing on the gas. So it knew I was awake. It just wanted to see my eyes. So once I sat upright and leaned forward, I guess it did facial recognition. And then it says, may I send you these results to a third party? To which I said, no, you may not. No. Who is the third party? Who, first of all, who's watching me drive the car to begin with? Secondly, who is the third party you're sending it to? And lastly, it is so dangerous. There are so many scenarios where losing control of the gas can put a car in a very dangerous situation. Like, what if I was pulling out in front of a semi-truck? What if I was going over a railroad track? And the absolute worst part is the argument for this is to combat sleepy drivers. And the truth is, if you fall asleep while you're driving, you're not going to be pushing down all the way on the gas. You're going to let up. You're going to relax. No one keeps their foot pointed while they're asleep. And if they say, well, what about cruise control? Then just take off cruise control. Disable cruise control in cars. That's the solution. Not, I need to see your eyeballs for the car to work. There's so many dangerous implications for this. But even if you're using it just for the good implication, you know, sleepy drivers, we need to see eyeballs at all times, it's still wrong. It's still a stupid idea. I've seen a few posts about
this is the eagle on the back of the $1 bill. Or is it? This is definitely an eagle. See his smooth, bald head? Beautiful, majestic eagle with its smooth, bald head. And just one more for good measure. Definitely an eagle, right? But this guy, he has like a weird tuft. A little, or maybe it looks something like this. Or maybe even this. My favorite one of all, though, this. Can you read that? Do you see what it says? I suspect that our eagle friend is actually a phoenix. But I don't know why you'd want to pretend it's something else. A phoenix is a symbol of rebirth, of a new start, which is what America was. So why wouldn't that be the symbol? What is an eagle a symbol for again? I don't really remember. This is the eagle on the back of
That video came from Trippin' Hippie 0420, and it's very interesting that it's clear what's on the back of the dollar bill, what the symbol of the United States is when it comes to the bird is the phoenix. And it really goes to show, especially on the back of the dollar bill, who we're ruled by between the pyramid, between the all-seeing eye and the phoenix. With these symbols, it really goes to show who's in charge of the United States. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe. If you're already subscribed, please like. As
believe that the UFO phenomenon itself is either a psyop from the government, it's totally fake in order to control us, or that it's real and that these beings come from another planet, another solar system, somewhere far off in the universe, a place that we'll never be able to see. And then you have a group of people that believe that they might be ultra terrestrials, meaning that they've lived here forever. Or they're interdimensional, meaning that they live here on Earth, just in another version of it, on another layer, so to speak. But then you have the people that you're about to hear from now. People that believe that there's a darker aspect of the alien phenomenon, that the UFO phenomenon in general it's not as it appears to be on the surface. And the guests that I interviewed, the guests that you're about to hear from, they have a lot of evidence that points in this direction. It points in a direction that the public doesn't want to hear. It points in a direction that leaves no room for doubt, in my opinion. Now, when I sat down with these two people, their names are Justin and Wes Fall from Fall Brothers Productions, I didn't know what to expect at first. I knew that they were making films about the alien phenomenon, and I knew that they had a radically different idea about it. What you're about to hear changes everything. It changes the whole paradigm of the UFO phenomenon, and it changes the way that a lot of people see it. A lot of people view it, because if they're right, if they're correct, which I believe they are, well, it really is the most important topic of our generation, as well as probably entire human history, but not in the way that you think, because what's about to happen to our world, to our reality, to Earth itself, it's going to be groundbreaking, but not in the way that they want you to think it is. Because the whole world is pushing one direction. It's a sleight of hand. They're pushing one direction while you're focused on this thing. They come around behind and they flank you. Okay. So I want you to, while you're watching this video, I want you to have an open mind first and foremost, because there is plenty of evidence that will be presented to you here that's all verifiable, and that it's really does change the game. And it really is paradigm shifting if you've never heard any of this stuff before, because it leaves no room for doubt. Now, with that being said, all the things you see happening in the news right now regarding the UFO phenomenon are just the beginning. Because whether or not you're watching this before disclosure or after disclosure, it doesn't make a difference. What makes a difference is the information you're about to hear in this interview, because it really does change everything. I know I said that before, but it's so important that you can't really gloss over it. All right, so here it is. Here's the interview with the Fall Brothers. We will see you on the other side.
My name is Wes Fall, and I am part of Fall Brothers Productions and Fourth Watch Films with Justin Fall and with Chad Riley. and the Lord just directed our steps into kind of a full circle. We both went to film school. Justin and I did years ago, and we had to pay bills, doing other things, but the Lord brought us back to making films. And so it's been a crazy ride, but I'm just glad to be here and doing what the Lord's called us to do.
My name is Justin Fall, and my background is in film production. I'm a film student from the Art Institute of Atlanta, and I'm also a career researcher. My main focus in life is to be able to wake up the church. I want to be able to better equip the church, and I want them to understand that the times they're going to be coming upon the face of this earth, which we are approaching, no one would deny that crazy prophecies are being fulfilled right now. Things that 100 years ago, the average Christian would not have understood the scripture the way that they would today, based on the unfolding of events that we're seeing. And so as a career researcher, my ministry is all about equipping the saints for the last days, equipping the tribulation saints, even if you want to use that language, but also to join the conversation of the world.
We wanted to look at it in the biblical aspect of it and to try to break down, what are we dealing with here? Because the world does have this answer, but as we found out, so does the Bible.
Higher Entities, it's a film that deals with a very much political, paranormal conspiracy. We made Higher Entities for a lot of different reasons. The timing of Higher Entities could not have been better, because we're dealing with a film that it digs deep into these areas of government alien entity connections. Now, why is that important? Because we're living in a time where we understand that the Antichrist is coming on the face of the earth. There will be an Antichrist. And we know that he has fallen angels that are going to be working with him. He's going to have a demonic army. He's going to have all types of lying signs and wonders. The Bible talks about these lying signs and wonders. And if it were possible, the elect would be deceived by his cunning. I believe the aliens in the last days, which we don't really believe them to be space aliens, and we'll get into that here in a few minutes, but I believe that the alien entities, the higher entities, they will likely use some type of a cataclysmic event, something major, whether it's real or synthetic. We know about Project Bluebeam. We know about technology where they can project an image in the sky.
There's going to be things that come upon this earth that are going to cause men's hearts to fail them. And so, like right now, everybody is consumed with this Western civilization of idea of going to work and coming home and watching the ball game and getting married, 2.5 kids, dog and a cat, that whole deal. There's no room for supernaturalism there. But when that does take place, it's going to flip the world on its head. And so I think that this is kind of like we've already seen like a soft disclosure take place. And I think it's prepping the world for that. But even more so, I believe that it's tying into what the Bible says is going to take place. And ultimately, it's going to be pointing the world towards an Antichrist, towards a false prophet promoting that Antichrist. He's going to be able to call fire down from heaven. It's going to be some supernatural feats taking place in the eyes of men. And so if the world doesn't have a supernatural worldview, that's going to give it to them. I think that all this is going to culminate pointing people to this so-called messianic figure that's going to be in the place of Christ. And for the church, the big thing on that end of things is that if they don't have a supernatural worldview, if they see this coming upon the world, if just specifically in Matthew 24, people claiming to be anointed, people claiming to be Messiah, which is just another word for anointed, and underneath that, anointed for an office, they're going to be coming in the name of Jesus. So they get their foot inside the church doors and they're saying they're anointed, and they're going to be doing crazy lying signs and wonders. And so that would be believing in what they see and what they experience versus having faith in God and his word.
Jesus said that there's coming a time where they're going to say to him, Lord, Lord, I did all this good stuff in your name. The thing that gets my attention there is that he mentioned some specifics, like casting out demons in your name.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a major denomination right now that they make their big deal on casting out demons. There's a couple of them, actually. There's going to be people that think they're operating in spiritual gifts Yet Jesus is going to say, I never knew you. But what we're talking about with this alien idea, the aliens are going to be giving different types of experiences to people. This is what people have to understand. The experiences have to be tested with scripture, because otherwise we're going to accept them because they're supernatural experiences, whether it's a supernatural healing, whether it's some type of a prophetic event where they speak a word of knowledge or they know something about your history, whatever it may be. The aliens could have a cure for cancer. The aliens, these higher entities are coming from a different place than us. They're not earthborn. The only ones that could be earthborn would be the demons, which came through the line of the Nephilim. And obviously that's a little bit of a different scenario. It ties in together. But with higher entities, we're dealing with, there is a group that we tracked in this film called the Collins Elite. And the idea was trying to answer the question, were there events in history where the American government was working with entities? That was kind of the beginning of this research. And if so, what happened? Can we validate this? What came of that? But also, were there factions in the government who stood up against these things? That was the premise of this film. And we started off by talking about a group known as the Collins Elite. Now, let's just go back in time. There was an event that took place back in the late 40s known as the Babylon Working Ritual. Now, this was a ritual that was carried out by Jack Parsons, JPL. People will even to this day say that JPL stands for Jack Parsons Laboratories, but on paper, it's Jet Propulsion Laboratories. JPL is major. It's a historic, so much surrounding this, so much history here. Jack Parsons was not professionally trained, yet he was tapping into high technology and building rockets. How do you do that without any type of formal training? There were no rocket programs in America before Jack Parsons. This is paramount to understand. This guy was tapping into, Theosophy, Thelema, the religion of Aleister Crowley. He was a disciple of Aleister Crowley, and he was working with L. Ron Hubbard, who was the founder of Scientology. Interestingly, not only did L. Ron Hubbard start Scientology, but he was a science fiction writer. The movie Battlefield Earth with John Travolta, well, that was written by L. Ron Hubbard. Interestingly, also, John Travolta is a Scientologist, right? Now, I mention this because this is a man who writes science fiction, yet he started a religion based on science fiction. There has to be something in there where he's getting these clues and these ideas. He's getting these from another realm.
From that point, they ripped a hole open into space-time. And from that point afterwards, you had, regardless of what Parsons actually successfully completed during that with the Whore of Babylon and different things, after that, you had the Roswell incident. You had the Kenneth Arnold sightings. You had in 1953, there was the swarm of UFOs that flew over the White House. And so there's this unleashing of supernatural activity that took place after that ritual was performed.
Babylon Working was successful, according to Jack Parsons. Matter of fact, Parsons said in his Antichrist Manifesto that they were successful and that a child was conceived in that act, and that there was a spirit known as Hilarion. The Whore of Babylon was what they were trying to bring about. They believed what we believe, and that America was the final Babylon. Like this was the revived Babylon. They believed it, and they were occultists. We're Christians and we believe it. There's evidence to back this up. But yes, let's backtrack just for a second. What happened was they opened up this portal. They created a rift, and entities began to come through. Not just this Whore of Babylon being birthed, but other entities, because people all over the place started having paranormal encounters, and they began to report this to law enforcement, report this to the FBI, report this to whatever agency they could get in touch with. And so the federal agencies said, we've got to come up with an answer for this. We were not prepared for any of this. There's UFO activity. There's talk of entities and demons and winged creatures and just all kinds of weird, just paranormal demonic activity following this ritual that Jack Parsons said finally worked. They did the ritual for a couple years. It finally worked, finally stuck. And that's what a scientist does. A scientist is going to work at something. He's going to work at the hypothesis until it's proven true or false. Now, finally, the researchers, the government puts together this group that says, we're going to get answers to what exactly took place out there in the desert in California by Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard. They go to Jack Parsons, and keep in mind, Jack Parsons is also working with the government. He's now been given, special privileges on things. So they go to him and they say, Jack, all of this stuff that's happening right now, did you do this? Did you do this? And he said, I think so. Now, shortly thereafter, Jack Parsons blows himself up in a lab. Accidental. It was not intentional. The occult belief was that whoever opened up the portal had to close the portal. Well, Jack Parsons is now dead. And the federal government is now having to understand and depict exactly to the public what's happening here. And so this group is researching, and out of that group, they finally start to make some headway. They know they're dealing with entities. And so in all of that, they begin to try to make contact with those entities, maybe for some help, maybe because they're trying to figure out how to close this thing. Maybe they're trying to figure out how to undo what Jack Parsons did. So they go through satanic rituals to communicate, because that's the only method of communication that they know that works to contact these entities. In doing this, there's a small faction known as the Collins Elite. This is where our film picks up. The Collins Elite was a small group inside of this larger group that was originally created to get answers to all of this. But once they began to engage in satanic rituals and magic and alchemy, this group says, hey, you know what? This is not what we signed up for. This small group raises up. It's a faction. It's a counterpoint group, which means that they are no longer in agreement with the big group. They have a different opinion. They say, we have a Christian worldview. This goes against our Christian worldview. And so they see that entities are being channeled and communicated with. And now technology is being given through these rituals to these other members of the government. So the Collins Elite says, whoa, 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 this is dangerous. You guys are really playing with fire here. We can't support this. We can't do this. And they came up with this idea that the aliens were going to take over, and that in order to protect our country from the aliens, from the entities, they believed that we needed to instate a forced theocracy based on the law of Moses, because they thought if our country would go back under the law of Moses, that we would be untouchable from these entities. This group, this bigger group that was researching to get answers, they did not exist. Okay, this was what's known as a limited access program, or an LAP. A limited access program means that nobody in Congress has to know about this.
The Collins Elite were a counterpoint group within different governmental organizations that were party to satanic ritual being used to make contact with these aliens or with these higher entities. And because of their Christian faith, they had the conviction. They saw this taking place, and they're like, well, we don't need to be a part of this. This is what the Bible talks about, and the worship of demons and of other gods, and especially being, using blood sacrifice and different types of black magic to be able to accomplish it. So they saw that, and they didn't want to be a part of it. They also were able to tie this back to what Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard did in the desert in the late 40s.
You've got literally just the group, and maybe a director knows about it. Nobody else. It's completely classified. It's top secret. It's under lock and key. But I want to mention something. One of the bombshells that we dropped was that there's a declassified federal document. Anyone watching this interview can go find this document. It's on the FBI vault. Document 6751. It's a document from the 40s. It was written by a prominent member of academia, and it was submitted to the FBI. In this document, they make a case that entities are not space aliens, but that they're interdimensional or extra-dimensional entities that are crossing over from a plane known as the ethereal plane. Now, we know, as researchers of the New Age movement, we know that is where the ascended masters are supposedly said to be on a high level. This ethereal plane is very popular. When you talk to people who astral project, people who channel, people who remote view, people who want to tap in or go on a trip, an ayahuasca trip, a DMT trip.
Ayahuasca, different trips, DMT, that does allow you to cross over, or allows a person to cross over into those dimensions. Outside of that, the satanic ritual has proven to be the most effective. And from the research that we've done, the people that we've interviewed, that seems to be the constant. That's like it's a guarantee you're going to make contact if you do this.
Now, the federal government had this document in the 40s, and language was used in this document that came right out of the playbook of Theosophy. Now, the guy that received this document, this is so crazy. The federal agent receives the document, and look, the FBI is constantly bombarded with phone calls and letters and emails, and they just can't deal with all of the propaganda from citizens. People make stuff up, and it's just it's nothing. It's crying wolf. So the FBI has to really be careful what they accept and what they don't. But this was back in the 40s. So the guy that receives the document, he recognizes that this information was received through paranormal means. As a matter of fact, the language used in the 40s was super normal. That's the old way of saying paranormal, super normal. So he says that all of this information was received through super normal means. Therefore, we need to discount it. It's not valid information. Now, that's the headline that he put. It's like a cover letter. If you really believe that, why did they classify the document? Why did they classify it and then forward it to all of these FBI prominent members at the highest level of security clearance? Why in the world would they classify it and lock it up if they didn't believe it? It wasn't until years later that they declassified document 6751. And I read this document and I'm thinking, okay, since the 40s, the federal government at the highest levels have known that these are not space aliens, that these are entities coming from another dimension.
Bad deals? Junk cars? Arm yourself and avoid getting ripped off. BeenVerified.com is a powerful tool.
In scripture, you have the chariots that are mentioned, God's transport basically, and it ripping through the space-time from the spiritual into the natural. I think that's basically the same thing that we're dealing with the UFOs. And because of the different deals that they've made with the governments, with the sharing of their technology, in order for them to have a safe space of being able to do whatever they do in the deep underground military bases. I think that some of the ones that you're seeing today are going to be basically the government taking that information and creating their own spacecraft. The technology that Standea was working on with anti-gravity craft, I think it follows along the same thing. You can go back to the Nazis with the Die Glocke and different things like that they made, which also they were highly involved with the occult. They didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to try this, this, and this. There was a basis. They went in there and they performed rituals to get the information to be able to practice that.
When you talk to someone who has worked in a deep underground military base, which we've interviewed people, they talk about different classes of entities. None of that is really mentioned in 6751. It's more so an overall summarization of what's going on. Now, there were some information about traveling through the dimensions. There's some very fascinating, tidbits in this document. And we don't really go too deep into the document other than referencing it in the film, because we had to go through, we've got over 300 declassified documents in our collection right now, all pertaining to aliens, UFOs, extrasensory perception, psychic activity that they're training people to operate in. The federal government has been training people in the occult since the 40s, training them in how to operate in occult magic and occult sciences. Everything our Bible tells us is absolutely forbidden. Our federal government has been a part of this since the 40s. And I want to add, back in the 40s, they still promoted the idea of a Christian nation of America. Yet behind the scenes, it just goes to show that the people in charge of our government have been pacifying the society since the beginning. And I don't understand how people could be so blinded. We present the information. This is what they said in the 40s, and it's only gotten worse over the years. Now, let me just draw us into this other area real fast. This group, the Collins Elite, they really wanted to create, how can I put this? They wanted to create some type of resistance. Non-aggressive, of course. Non-aggressive resistance. That's what I understand that from my studies. That's what I believe. They wanted a non-aggressive resistance to what was taking place, because they saw that when a man or a group of men began to communicate with these entities, the hunger for power gets greater and greater and greater. And then you're no longer trying to get answers. You're now wanting to ask them to give you blessings. You're now getting technology and information from these entities, and you're utilizing it in the way that you structure your government moving forward. And you would say, well, why would these entities need the government? It's not a matter of them needing the government. It's a matter of setting up the scene for the end times deception, where the Antichrist is going to unite the governments of the world. It's all part of their long game. They've been working on this since the beginning of time. It didn't work at the Tower of Babel. The Lord ended it quickly. But here we are today. Where are we today, and what happened between then and now? Well, what we find out is that one of our contacts, Stan Deyo, who, by the way, Tom Horn gave us a great endorsement of Stan Deyo. Tom Horn, before his house burned down years ago, he had this big newspaper article from the UK, and standing on the cover with these other elite doctors and scientists, it's Stan Deyo, and they're giving him credit in the UK, public knowledge that he's working on anti-gravity craft. Now, the film that we did called The Hollow Earth Chronicles, we did a whole segment in that film on Operation High Jump. This was a joint task force between the American government, the British government, and the Australian government, headed by the US and Admiral Byrd. They go down to Antarctica and what turns into a UFO battle. And their big plan got cut in half, and they had to come home early because we lost men, we lost ships. There's stories of UFOs coming up out of the water and just cutting ships in half with laser. I mean, just crazy stuff that you only see in movies. What's fascinating about this is that this was a joint task force with those same three governments that are now working together with Stan Deyo, the British, the American, and the Australians working together on alien technology yet again. Years after Operation High Jump happened, Stan Deyo was working as a secret agent for the FBI in Australia inside of the deep underground military bases. And he said while he was in the program, he knew about the deal with Eisenhower. He knew in the program that President Eisenhower had made a deal with what they called alien entities. I believe that the evidence points to two events taking place, and these two events happened 1 year apart. The first one happened at Edwards Air Force Base, where Eisenhower disappears, and they call it a media blackout. It was kind of similar to when Hillary Clinton and President Obama disappeared and were at the Bilderberg meeting, but nobody knew where they were, and it was called the media blackout. People freaked out, right? Well, something similar happened here, where Eisenhower is no longer on radar, and they come back later and say, oh, well, he had a dental emergency, and so he had to go seek private dental care. Now that happened, and then a year later we have the Holloman Air Force Base event. Now the thing about the Holloman event was that people were there who witnessed it. Holloman is where they were out on the landing strip, and you had UFOs landing, meeting with him. Meeting took place with Eisenhower and others, and then those UFOs took off. Now, there were eyewitnesses who have come forward. I was just talking about this with Chad Riley because he found some videotapes from the 90s. This is before the internet was doing its thing. In the 90s, there were videos that were recorded, old VHS tapes of some of these disclosure type engagements. I don't know what you want to call it, but these are men that were there. They're decorated men from the government, and they're now speaking out that yes, UFOs were landing and taking off at Holloman Air Force Base, and I believe it was 1955. We do know that things began to be more apparent after Babylon working, and therefore there were more things taking place where there was people seeking the entity. So what I believe happened was that the rift was open, the tear in the space-time continuum, if you will, a portal, Stargate was opened, and the government got involved. The feds got involved. Once they began to communicate with the entities, there was now a relationship being built, and it was no longer shock value that there are these entities who want to work with us. So I think that was definitely an open door, no pun intended, for those entities to now be communicating with President Eisenhower years later, not too many years later, but a few years later. They're now meeting with Eisenhower. And so the story goes like this. We're on the road trip. We're driving out to meet with Ray Boucher, who was contacted by the Department of Defense. This is really important. This is one of those like haymakers. The information that he gives us that he presented his full disclosure in our film Higher Entities. But we're driving there, we're having a discussion, and we decided let's just go ahead and let's run some cameras, while we're driving and talking. So we set up our production stuff in Darren's SUV. We're driving down the road, and we have this conversation about this Eisenhower deal. See, what I had heard and researched was a little different than what Darren had picked up in his research. And this is one of those scenes in the movie where it's just like, wow, like the stuff that came out was so organic and unbelievable. Apparently, there were two events that happened, and a lot of people blur them. A lot of people will mix it up with the Edwards Air Force Base and the Holloman. They're two separate events a year apart. That's so important. But the idea is that the gray aliens on record met with Eisenhower, And then you had this other group of entities known as like the Tall Whites or the Nordics. They met with Eisenhower separately and they warned him. They said, you do not ever want to make a deal with the gray aliens. They are deceptive. They are very deceptive. All they want to do is deceive you and enslave you. They're demonic, basically. I don't think they use the word demonic, right? Because they're all demonic. But they were warning Eisenhower never to enter into a covenant with the Greys. Well, they were the good guys. The Greys were the bad guys. This is fascinating because if you fast forward into this idea of a coming deception, they had to already set the groundwork to create a good alien, good cop, bad cop. Because what we're dealing with here is a bunch of liars. Satan's a liar. His demons are liars. That's why when someone starts playing with a Ouija board, their grandmother starts talking to them. It's not your grandmother, bro. That's a demon.
Yeah.
That's an entity who wants to deceive you. Right. They want to steal, to kill, and to destroy. That's biblical. And we're also told as Christians, we got to be vigilant. We got to be sober-minded because Satan is our adversary. And the word Satan, the name Satan isn't really a name. We have this misconception that Satan, the devil, the red pitchfork. And in reality, Ha-Satan is the enemy, the adversary. And so when we say Satan, it could actually be referring to the whole team of demons and entities, fallen angels. And so what we have is we have the fallen angels. And now it's my personal belief. Let me just lay this out real quick. It's my personal belief based on the book of Revelation and based on me using a calculator and understanding some definitions. I was able to calculate that if a third of the angels fell with Lucifer, with Satan, the Satan, right? If a third of them fell with him, and that's also based on another passage of a third of the stars getting knocked down to earth. If that passage means what we think it means, and if we understand it correctly, a third of the angels fell with Satan. And you can do your math and figure out that equals somewhere between 30 to 50 plus million fallen angels on the surface of the earth. Now, out of that, some of them were put in chains. The Bible tells us this because the ones that committed sexual sin, the Genesis 6, they have been locked up in chains. We can read about this in Jude. But the ones that are not locked in chains.
Can you really earn a degree without paying anything?
Yes, you can earn a degree at Maestro without paying anything. If you qualify, you
just think about it, 30 to 50 plus million fallen angels on the face of the earth. Like that's, I made the comment recently in an interview I did that is more than the population of the largest state in America.
I mean, these are the gods of the nations. These are the ones who have been worshipped throughout time. These are the ones of the nations who they set up the groves and the high places and offered sacrifices to them. They've been presenting themselves to humanity throughout time under different names, but under the same descriptions of their characteristics. So when you look at it in those kind of terms, and to also answer your question about are they otherworldly or interdimensional, through the document 6751, we did find that back in the 40s even, they were saying that they were interdimensional beings. So that will parallel with what scripture has to say of fallen angels. With Job, for instance, you have Job, and this kind of is a crossover between our first film, Hollow Earth Chronicles, and the latest Higher Entities. But in Job, you have now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, whence comest thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. So on one hand, you have him being able to present himself before the Lord, but he also is able to, and that's the spiritual realm. That's the things that we can't access. There's a barrier that's been put in place. But Satan and these divine beings with the divine council, they were able to hold an audience before the Lord. At the same time, Satan says here that he's allowed, or that he's been going to and fro in the earth and walking up and down in it. So that's an interdimensional feat.
And by the way, Tom Horn, his brother-in-law was murdered. He worked at Los Alamos. This was the first time he ever told the story publicly. He never spoke this story publicly. Matter of fact, he told his sister that he would not disclose the full story while she was still alive. Yet here he is. He worked it out to tell us the story in our film. His brother-in-law worked for Los Alamos. And interestingly, he married Tom's sister, who had alien encounters from the time she was about 13 years old. Not only did she suffer alien visitations and paralysis as a child, her daughter, the next generation, when she entered into that age of puberty, she began to get attacked. And then her husband, this is where it gets crazy. He comes home one day. They start drinking, knocking back a few. One thing leads to another, which I found out a lot of times when people start drinking, they're able to pull things out of the recesses that they would never talk about. So many stories of alien abductions and demonic activity people are willing to talk about after they have a few drinks. Things that are in those deep recesses come out. Now, I'm not saying that to recommend or to I'm just saying that a lot of the stories we find out about in our research comes from one guy having a few drinks, and then it just starts coming out. Wow. It's like the filter's gone. Long story short, and we give the full story in Higher Entities. It's a great story. I mean, not great as in good, but it's very fascinating. He comes home. He and the wife start drinking, and she decides she's going to share some of her childhood history with him that he didn't know about. And if I remember correctly how it all went down, he comes out and says, well, this is crazy because we're actually working with this type of stuff at Los Alamos. Now, he gives her information that we don't know, but he disclosed to her what he was doing in the alien base that the conspiracy theorists call an alien base. But now it doesn't really seem like a conspiracy theory anymore, because if it was just a theory, why would he have been killed 24 hours later? 24 hours after he shares what they were doing at Los Alamos, he disappears. No body found, nothing. They say that they've never seen him back in the offices, So she reaches out and she's like, where's my husband never came home from work. He left for work. He left our house. He drove, he went to Los Alamos, but he never came home. Well, she now wants to get her benefits just to help pay for, for all the expenses that he was bringing in money. He's no longer there, and he's been working hard. There's pension and guarantees that she's supposed to get. They won't give her anything because there's no body. Without a body, there's no death certificate. Without a death certificate, there's no benefits. So she, working for the federal government as well, she starts rattling the cage high up. And finally, once she starts dropping information that's putting fear in people, they, in order to shut her up, finally say, okay, you know what? Here you go. Here's your benefits. Done. Now, that tells me that it's not a conspiracy theory, that there's actual fact to this. There's alien activity, demonic activity going on at Los Alamos. And it was so serious that they would have had his house bugged, and that they were tracking every discussion he had in that house. And that was the thing, was he was working in the DUM, the Deep Underground Military Base. From my understanding, he was working there, and he told her what he was working on. Wow. We don't even know what that was. That's what's so fascinating about this story, is that we don't even know what he disclosed, but it was something so serious that 24 hours later, he's dead. Again, we're dealing with the fallout of what took place at the Babylon Working. Babylon Working changed everything. I believe that was prophetic on the satanic timeline. That was a big deal. And so I do believe for a fact that Roswell was just another byproduct. And I also believe, based on another FBI document that we have in our stack of over 300, is that there were more than one craft. And I believe, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I want to say there was possibly 9 bodies, according to one declassified document. This is going to lead us right into Ray Boucher. Ray Boucher is now bringing all of this current. We're no longer dealing with 1940s or 50s or 60s. We're dealing with, our lifetime, and this is where it just hits home. Ray Boucher is an ordained minister. He has been a Baptist minister, a Lutheran minister, and he's also known as a Lutheran exorcist. We're very particular about who we work with and who we yoke up with in ministry. And after talking with Ray and looking into him, he is extremely biblically sound. His theology is right in line with Scripture on all the majors that would matter. And so we did some homework on this guy, Tom Horn, Derek Gilbert, everybody that we talked to, people that I'm not even going to name, people that we talked to off the record, everybody kept saying, including Darren Geisinger and Chad Riley, they all said, you got to talk to Ray Boucher. They said he was met with by 2 members of the Department of Defense because of his unique background as a minister, as an exorcist, and as the head of MUFON for his state, which is Nebraska. This is a guy who was heavily involved in the UFO community back before the internet was a thing. He would go to these meetings. He would read up. I mean, back then it was like a videotape was like $60, like a documentary videotape. You pay 60. I mean, these were the days before the internet, before YouTube. Information was harder to get. But Ray Boucher was heavily involved in the UFO community back in the day. And so being the head of MUFON and also for his state, and also for being a minister and an exorcist and a UFO advocate, a UFO truth advocate, these two men contact him from the DOD and they say, we really need to meet with you because of your unique standing. We need to meet with you and we need basically we need you to consult with us about what some of this may be. So he met secretly with these members of the Department of Defense, and they told him that they were part of a non-existent group inside the DOD working on government facilities paid for by taxpayer dollars, and that they began to try to get answers to some of this stuff, and they began to engage in occult rituals to communicate with these entities. Now, let me explain this. If you don't feel like this is just a reoccurrence of the Collins elite, I mean, this is recent. This is happening in the modern time period. He says that their bigger group was engaging in what he called satanic rituals. And he even said that the DOD contacts hinted at human sacrifice being done on the taxpayer dollar behind closed doors on government facilities. He said they started off with, we just want to get answers. And he says, and that turned into a we can do better mentality. We can do more than this. We can go above and beyond. This is the same story you see when you're watching movies about famous drug dealers. Oh, we can do better mentality. Starts off, they're just selling a little dope. And before you know it, they're a kingpin and they just want more and more and more. It's not that they need it anymore, but it's that we can do better mentality. We can't leave well enough alone. To quote Karate Kid, we cannot leave well enough alone, and we can do better, and we're going to do better, and we're going to get more technology, we're going to get more information, we're going to get more power, and we're going to rise up by the power of the entities. And so Ray Boucher explained to them that, yes, this stuff was extremely demonic, that, yes, y'all had a good idea. Basically, your instincts were correct. This is demonic and you don't need to be doing it. They knew that was the case, but they needed someone they could talk to, such as Ray Boucher with his unique background. And so he was able to meet with them. And I believe they met twice. They had some phone conversations. But the thing is Ray wouldn't meet with us originally. He didn't want to talk to anybody. He's a very friendly guy. He was willing to just be cordial and hello, nice to meet you. But when we told him we wanted him on camera and that we wanted to meet with him, it was like, well, I could probably work with you guys at some point. He says, but I'm really busy. It's kind of like the nice way of saying, sorry, can't help you. We continued to try to reach out to him. We began our investigation. We talked with Tom Horn and Derek Gilbert and these others. Derek Gilbert told us to go listen to an interview he did with a podcast. Dr. Future, I think, was the name of the show. And we listened to it. And at the very beginning of the podcast, the guy says, wow, we've been trying to schedule this with you for over a year, and you're finally coming on to talk with us. So I imagine Ray Boucher is extremely careful. He's very standoffish. He wants to protect his family. He doesn't want to get involved in something he shouldn't be. And so I just kind of wrote it off that he's not going to meet with us. And we're probably going to have to just go ahead and end this project early. He finally comes through and says, okay, I'll do it. But I'm not going to tell you where we're going to meet or what time we're going to meet. He says, plan on coming down and getting a hotel in the big city close by. So we did. We went down. We got a hotel in the big city. And it was a big city, by the way. This city was booming and busy. I mean, crazy busy the whole time we were there. We didn't know until the morning of what time we were going to meet and the fact that he was going to come to us at our hotel room. That's how secretive he is. And just to add a little bit of mystery to the situation, shortly after we got done releasing this film, I get word that Ray Boucher has been diagnosed with some strange, rare kind of cancer. So I say that to ask people to be praying for him. One of the bonus nuggets that we released in Higher Entities was there was a guy who had very high security clearance. I believe it was a lieutenant colonel. I forget. Chad Riley knows it was his contact. It wasn't our contact. And by the way, let me just give a quick shout out to Chad Riley. He's the guy who fishes up these documents that nobody's ever heard of.
Nice.
Like, we are blessed to have people are like, how do you even get some of this information? Well, we've got a guy on our team named Chad Riley, and he has a skill to where he fishes up these rare documents from the FBI vault that nobody's ever heard of. And so it's a blessing to have him on board. And he's also our co-producer. So having Chad on board, because somebody's going to wonder, how did you find document 6751? It was downloaded. You can only download it, like, if you don't know how to find it, you got to download it in a thick packet called the UFO packet #1, which, by the way, is available on the FBI vault. The same FBI vault where they admitted that Hitler was alive in Argentina after World War II. People ask where we got that document that we showed in the Hollow Earth Chronicles. Well, we got it from the FBI. While I was doing an interview with Gon Shimura on Face Like the Sun YouTube channel, he goes to pull up the document. His IP address is blocked from accessing that document. He had to go in and change his settings live on the recording that we did. He had to change his browser settings just to access 6751. Now, I don't want to digress. This is so important. We're dealing with this idea of government agencies doing anything it takes to keep you from getting the Easter egg. That's what it is. They're trying to hide their Easter eggs. And so what happened here was Chad's contact, his name is Greg Renrich. He has the above top secret clearance, areas such as Groom Lake, Area 51, a list. Chad breaks down the whole list and higher entities. And so Chad was in contact with him through our other mutual contact, Kay Carswell, who's a dear friend of ours. Kay has become friends with Greg Renrich. They've interviewed him. I don't know if they've interviewed him publicly or just private, but he started to give Chad all this information that we were going to include in our film. And so the information was unbelievable. And I'll give that information away here in a second, but I want to just say he was supposed to be in our film. Some point, he just decides he's going to just fall off the face of the earth and back out. And so we're trying to get answers, like what's going on with Greg Renrich. I mean, he was a prime interview. We needed him. This guy has been down in the underground bases with the entities. See, Stan Deyo didn't work directly with entities. His colleagues worked with the entities. Wow. So Stan's was hearsay, trustworthy hearsay, but he didn't work with the entities. This guy, Greg Renrich, worked in the base with entities that called themselves the Nephilim. They were 9-10 feet tall entities, and they told him that they were preparing for an intergalactic war with God and that they were going to win. They believed they were going to win. Furthermore, Greg Renrich is on record saying that he had to sign an affidavit before he could go in this facility, that he wouldn't even use the name Jesus, even as a cuss word in this deep underground military base. And this goes right back to what Joe Jordan says, is that hundreds of cases of alien abduction completely halted at the name of Jesus being proclaimed. Even if he stubbed his toe as a cuss word, he couldn't say Jesus.
I'll go back to the quote from Aleister Crowley. We mentioned this in the film, but he says that today we're calling them angels and demons. Tomorrow we'll call them something else. So we could, in the world standards, we can call them aliens. In the world standards, we can call them ascended masters, light beings, give them a name. But scripturally, I'll go back to the same beings that were depicted in Genesis 6, but even more so, fine tuning it to the Table of Nations. What happened at Babel was God, he disinherited the nations, and he accounted them, he allotted them to the number of the sons of God.
It's kind of similar to what the Freemasons believe. When you work your way up into Freemasonry, you believe that it's compatible with your faith. And in reality, it's really not compatible with anyone's faith. It's its own faith. But you don't know that at the lower levels. You know, it's a universalist group. You know, when you take that first initiation, you are agreeing that all paths lead to the great architect, you know, what they call God, the eye of providence. As you work your way up, I think it's the 28th degree, somewhere between the 28th and the 30th, if I remember correctly. I just had this conversation the other night with my buddy Brett. And you have this understanding that the Bible is good and it's the word of God. But when you get to the 28th to the 30th degree, you find out that the role gets reversed and that Lucifer was actually the underdog. He was the good God that really did all the good creation, that really did. He had the best, he had basically our best interest at heart. It's Gnosticism. And so Jesus, they believe, is the enemy. Yahweh is the enemy, that it's a reversal role, that the Bible, and this is part of the coded language that they use, is that you don't find this out until you're higher up. So it's like the reversing of roles. So even though Jesus has already died on the cross, he shed his blood on Calvary, and there's some really interesting things about his blood possibly going down to the Ark of the Covenant. Maybe another video we could talk about that. But Jesus died on Calvary. He descended into the heart of the earth, where he preached to the spirits in prison. This is all part of the Hollow Earth film we did. And then he rose. He defeated death. He rose from the dead. And he declared victory over every unclean spirit, over every imp of Satan, over every evil entity that would ever be in existence. He literally declared victory over. And their time is short. They know their time is short, yet their goal is to try to do as much damage to the kingdom as they can. But what we know, according to scripture, is that their work is in vain, because the cross defeated all of that. Now, let me add one last little thing here. Greg Renrich was out walking on his ranch, his farm, his property, with his wife. And all of a sudden they get this thing on the back of their neck, and they're kind of, wiping it. You ever smash a bug or something? You kind of do one of these. So they get a slimy residue on the back of their neck. Well, it doesn't affect him the same way it affects his wife. And this is their property. This isn't like they're out in some random wooded lot. This is their land. They get back, and they've already had a horrible history ever since he started speaking out about his testimony, because he's a Christian, to the best of my knowledge. He began to share these stories publicly, and he had just a SWAT team show up at his house with machine guns, destroyed his family. The family relationships that they had tight bonds with are now, they've got a broken family over all this. People can't understand why he would have done anything to put their family at risk. They're like, why would you have done this? Why would you even talk about this? You have ruined this family. And so he doesn't even have good relationships with all of his family anymore, because of the high up non-existent government, SWAT teams that are coming out to force him into submission. Anyway, that happened previously. Now, fast forward, they're walking on their land, and they get this slimy residue on the back of their neck. And so they get back home, and the wife is ill. I mean, it acted fast. So ill. Chad gave us an update. Chad contacted him, and we filmed the update in the film because we were waiting on him. We were kind of tracking along. He's not going to come on the film. His wife's not doing well. Matter of fact, Chad said in the film that he didn't know if his wife was actually going to make it through all of this. And it reminded me of the late J.C. Johnson, who was a friend of mine. He was a cryptozoologist, and he would take people on guided tours in the Four Corners area, where he would show people where these animals would show up. Like he says that they've seen pterodactyls. He says they've seen all kinds of crazy, what we could only call a hybrid or a prehistoric type. And I don't believe in prehistoric time, but the idea of what we're told dinosaurs are, these strange animals, right? We're told that there's portals in the Four Corners where these things cross over, and the Indians don't want to go near it. And these wild animals, what we would call animals, they're these weird things that are coming through the portals. So J.C. Johnson would go out there with his, he'd take a security team with machine guns, like mercenary style, and they would give guided tours out there. People that wanted to go see this for themselves. And it was several times he would send me photos from their action cameras where they would pick up what looks like gray aliens in bushes. Wow. Anyway, I'm bringing all this up because J.C. Johnson told me that he had friends that went down to Dulce to research. He said that they were getting a little too close to the fire. They got done doing their homework. They go back to their car. Well, what they didn't know is that before they got back to their car, there were men in black, these men in the shadows, that came and dusted some type of a biological weapon known as a transdermal on the handles of their car. So all they had to do was touch the handle. You touch it, it is now transdermal. It's going into your bloodstream immediately. And they become either really, really ill to the point where the rest of their life is spent in a bed, or they die. That's what I was reminded of when Greg Renrich, passed on the message that his wife was ill and that they had found some type of a slime on the back of their necks. I don't want to lose my life, because I've got so much love to give and I got so much, kingdom work to do. But I'm reminded of this passage in the Bible, and I don't have the address in my mind. I don't know where it is in the Bible, but there's a passage that talks about, don't fear those that can kill the body. Mm-hmm. You need to fear the one that owns your soul, the one that can take your soul, and that is the Almighty God. That is Yahweh, Jehovah, Jesus Christ. He's the only one that I fear. And so if someone were to take this body because of me doing a service to the kingdom, it just means more crowns and riches in the next life.
And Philippians 2:8, and I got that here. Wherefore God also hath highly exalted him, speaking of Christ, and given him a name which is above every name. So that's the authority, that at the name of Jesus every knee shall bow, every knee should bow, of things in heaven and things in earth and things under the earth, and that every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. So just a couple things on that. First, it shows that that these places actually exist. So you've got things in heaven, things in earth, and things under the earth. Those are three physical locations, and we'll call them spiritual locations because we can't access the one or the other until we're completed. But it also shows, and most importantly, it shows that Jesus has all the authority. It's all been given to him because of what he's done. And so every tongue is going to confess at one point or another that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. He's been exalted above everything. Everything's under his authority. So there's nothing to fear. Thank God we've been given his word to study it. And I wish I would have started earlier, man. Like one of the things I tell people that are, earlier on their walks, I wish I would have started reading the scripture on a daily basis. Because that's where our foundation comes from. That's the basic instruction before leaving earth. It's our map. He gave us this so we wouldn't be lost. It documents the whole story.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing to fear.
It's amazing.
If we're in Christ, we're sealed until that day.
Amen. So there it was. What did you think about that? Pretty interesting, huh? They're talking about document 6751, how it shows that the FBI knew that these were interdimensional beings from the get-go. Not just interdimensional beings, but beings that could be contacted through paranormal means, through rituals, through black magic. And you know what? It's not just them saying that. This has actually been corroborated. And now it's well known that you can summon these things, specifically using magic rituals, using telekinesis, using these different occult practices. It's easy to summon these things. And in fact, I've done it before. If you followed this channel for any length of time, you've probably heard my story where before I was into any of this stuff, before I was even a believing Christian, I was doing Dr. Stephen Greer's CE5 contact, and it actually worked. I know it sounds crazy, but it did work. I was able to summon one of these things using his meditation protocols, and it was pretty anticlimactic, but it did happen. I've told the story before. But anyway, yeah, this is not an isolated phenomenon. It's not just Justin and Westfall talking about this. The entire ufology field in general knows that this is an aspect of it. So if this is an aspect of it, what else are they not telling us? Well, I'll tell you what. This book here documents over 400 cases from people, from abductees. I don't call them experiencers, by the way. I call them abductees because it's not an experience. It is an abduction. It is against the will, and it is traumatizing to these people. In that book, there's over 400 testimonies of individuals who stopped alien abductions permanently by calling on the name of Jesus. People who were abducted their whole lives turned to Christ, gave their life over to Christ, and next time that the abduction happened, guess what? They called on the name of Jesus, and guess what happened? It stopped. It stopped immediately, and it never happened again. Why? Well, because these things are actually terrified of Christ. And this is actually something that can be proven scientifically. So this is repeatable. It's repeatable that if you are encountering this phenomenon, guess what? Call upon the name of Christ. It will stop. It is repeatable. If you see a UFO in the sky, guess what? Call upon the name of Christ. It will flee from you if you're a Christian. And guys, this isn't just a magic word, say the name of Christ and they're scared because the way that the vibration comes out of your mouth is something, no, it's not a magic word. It's not a ritual. It's not about the word itself. It's about who is being invoked. It's about Jesus himself. The Bible tells us that every being in creation will bow to him. Every knee will bow. All right. So these beings are terrified of Christ. And this is exemplified over and over again in all the contact literature. If you follow Joe Jordan at all, if you listen to any of his CE4 stuff, you know that this is a repeatable thing and people have been freed by it. So when this whole, let's just say UFO disclosure starts to happen, or if you're watching this after it already did happen, keep this in mind. Because if it starts to get a little bit too close to home for you, there is a cure, there is an antidote, and there's a way that you can make these things leave you alone forever. Okay. So I don't know, guys. What do you think about this? Pretty interesting, right? There's a lot to uncover here. There's a lot to unpack. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, by the way. It gets way deeper than that. And I'm working on some stuff right now that's going to blow this whole thing totally out of the water. And it's just taking a lot of time because researching takes time. So what do you think about this? Put it in the comments below. I want to hear your opinions. So guys, I want to thank you all for watching this video. We'll see you guys next time. God bless you all.
Things are changing rapidly, and the agendas are beginning to come together and reveal themselves. We are living in a time of lies that is directly about steering the mass population towards the beast. We have all these major agendas hanging right over us, waiting to be revealed and brought forth. And what are the masses doing? They are asleep, watching the playoffs, waiting to binge the latest series, or literally discussing the next Avengers movie. We are literally in a time of mass zombies. And the worst part of it is that people actually hate you for revealing this and exposing the lies and the falsehoods. The future for many, it's not bright. And I guess that's why people are ignoring it, because most people know that they're not attached to any sort of righteousness that would deem them worthy of anything good in the future. So to them, their best bet is to just live for today and hope that religion really is false and that God really isn't real. And the truth is, on one side, they are right. They are right that religion is false. All these major world religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, as well as the other smaller ones, they are all fake, and they are all meant to lead the world towards one direction. So that bet is true. But what is false is believing that God is not real. There is a creator of this world, and he has prophesied judgment to this world. And that is precisely what is happening today. The major physical judgments have not come forth yet, but the mental judgment is very much here. And I would like to address some things now before things are taken up a notch. I have for a while spoken against the religion of Christianity, and I have addressed the fact that the religion of Christianity is false and it leads to the beast of Revelation. It is a religion of tares. It should not be hard to understand why the largest religion in the world will lead to the Antichrist. If there is an agenda to get the whole world to worship the Antichrist, why do people believe that the number one religion in the world would not be a major vessel used to bring this forth, particularly when scripture says that Satan deceived the whole world? I have for many times spoken that they have a plan for Christians, and we are right now witnessing this plan and watching a part of it form. These are very exciting times, but if you're not living in the truth, problems are going to be charging at you, and for you, I could understand why this wouldn't be exciting. There is a great deal of things happening right now, though. I mean, amongst all these agendas, I think the biggest factor to notice is the world economy and exactly what oil and inflation are doing right now. I've been talking about a great reset for a long time now, and you can truly see exactly how all of it is forming. But in the midst of all that, there are two other stories that have started to develop, and before things escalate, I wanted to comment on it now. You see, while people are starting to have fear, all I have is excitement and joy. If you live in the truth and know the God that you serve and what he has promised, you need to walk in that strength today, right now. There should be no more being on the fence, especially after all these years we've been talking about growing your faith and your conviction. The time is now to activate it and walk in strength and power. Do you see what's in front of you? They are now bringing out another virus in aliens. The strong delusion is about to be cemented, and it truly is a beautiful thing for those who live in the truth, but a very bad thing for those who do not love the truth. It is very important that you make a strong decision to live in the truth and know what our Father has truly promised us, because if you do not love the truth, you are about to be a part of judgment and condemnation. I want to talk about it because with what is occurring, there is a line being drawn in the sand with this ministry. And so I want to make sure that it's communicated. So we're going to discuss the strong delusion that is here, and I hope that many of you are not a part of it. They're bringing out aliens and a new virus. It's time to wake up. Let's begin. Okay, so let's start with the easy stuff first. Let's take notice of what's on the plate right now in this world. We have a war with Iran that's on, then off, on, then off. And we should never lower expectations, being that we know that eventually they're trying to rebuild the temple. This is what all this is leading to. Also, we have oil prices at record highs, destroying the world economy. We have major businesses that are closing right before our eyes. We have gas prices surging towards record highs that can by itself bring everything to a major halt. I mean, do you remember, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, how things started slowing when Biden was in office and gas was going crazy? That's when eggs disappeared from the shelves. I mean, do you remember that? The same thing is happening with gas prices again, but the problem is deeper. We have massive U.S. debt now at $39 trillion that's spiraling out of control, that investors are now giving suggestions on how the United States could handle this debt solution. And what the suggestion is very bad. There are investors right now restructuring their debt because of what they think the United States may do to deal with their debt. And if they took any of these options, the United States would never be able to borrow money again. So it's crazy that they're even suggesting it. But the thing about it is that the mainstream media is now speaking about this debt problem.
The United States has hit a grim financial milestone. For the first time since World War II, our national debt is now larger than our entire annual economic output. Public debt climbed to $31.27 trillion by the end of April, and that is compared to the U.S. Gross domestic product, which is $0.05 trillion less.
And with everything this week, we have 2 changes happening. We have Fed Chair Jay Powell's term ending May 15th, with the new Fed Chair, Kevin Warsh, set to succeed him. This man, Kevin Warsh, has plans to change the Fed and has practically called for a financial reset to monetary policy. You must always remember the Federal Reserve is not a United States government entity. And then also this week, we have Trump calling for a national Sabbath day of rest on the same day of this change. A very odd thing that many people are raising alarm bells because of is nothing that I care about, except that it's never been done in the history of this country. So when new precedents are set at a time when the world is shifting, I don't believe it's inconsequential. But I don't play these conspiracy theories any longer. I really don't care too much about what they're saying in all these agendas. The truth is, we know things are going to turn for the worse at some point. We just don't know exactly what the narrative is going to be. The point that I'm making is that the economics of this world economy are in the trash, and they literally have pushed more stress on it, shutting down the Strait of Hormuz and creating an oil crisis, which is set to have major consequences all around the world. It was just this Sunday, Saudi Aramco CEO Amin Nasser, he confirmed that the global oil market will take a significant amount of time to normalize, potentially lasting until 2027 if disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz continue. He said even if shipping flows resume immediately, the market is facing a long disruption due to the loss of approximately 1 billion barrels of oil over the past 2 months, which has severely depleted global inventories. So even if they were to reopen the straits today, there is still a great deal of strain, and the world is completely dependent on oil. The narrative is that they have lost 1 billion barrels of oil. That's a lot. So let me be clear. This time right now, this is when you should be planning for life disruption. I would plan for job losses. I would prepare for supply shortages. I would prepare for food shortages. A lot of the same things that you went through during the times of COVID, I would start preparing for them now. If you remember what you dealt with during the times of COVID, I would start preparing for those kind of things now. I would prepare for higher costs in everything, especially food. If you've been stocking up, go through your items and review what you have. Things are going to get hard, and you need to be mentally and spiritually prepared to get through it. You need to be thinking about this now while everyone else is not. I've discussed these things for a long time. They have created the conditions for a perfect storm. You can see the narratives. You should prepare for it while everyone else is distracted. That's a piece of advice. Now listen, with all that said, this is the real thing I really wanted to discuss. With all that other news I just covered, they literally right now are rerunning a script that they used before. And it wasn't even a long time ago. Literally the same narrative they used the first time. And now they're introducing a new virus. They've introduced the hantavirus.
Tonight, an urgent medical evacuation to take place at any moment. 3 people suspected to have the high-risk hantavirus on a cruise ship now off the coast of Cape Verde in the Atlantic Ocean, expected to be transported to the Netherlands using 2 air ambulance planes, according to the Cape Verde Ministry of Health and the ship's operator. Already, 3 people who were aboard the ship have died.
One American passenger evacuated from the hantavirus-hit cruise ship has tested positive for the virus, while officials say another is displaying mild symptoms. Thanks for staying up late with us. For Eyewitness News at 11, I'm Liz Nagy.
And I'm Jory Rand. 3 people have already died after being infected with the hantavirus aboard that luxury cruise liner. And as Eyewitness News reporter Tim Pulliam explains, that plane is now carrying the 17 American passengers less than an hour away now from touching down in the U.S. with a positive case on board.
As 17 Americans and 1 British national at the center of the hantavirus surge head to the U.S., health leaders confirm one of them has tested positive for the virus. Health and Human Services say the person doesn't have any symptoms, but the agency reports a second passenger is showing signs of sickness. According to HHS, both individuals have been separated from the other passengers during the flight to Nebraska, where they will be isolated from the remaining passengers who will be monitored at a quarantine unit. 3 people have died from the virus, one of them a 70-year-old Dutch national. Authorities believe the first victims contracted the virus from rodents while visiting the southern tip of South America.
Yes, we know that the first cases did travel to those regions. We just don't know which specific ones.
Yeah. It supposedly started on a cruise ship. And I remember distinctly in 2020, them holding that cruise ship with the people with COVID on it and then letting them off. And then the so-called pandemic started. And they literally are doing the same thing, running the same script over again. And now we're seeing possibilities of it being spread, like somebody's talking about somewhere in New Jersey and some also in Israel. We know there's more to come, though. And the thing is that there's a lot more to say about all this, but honestly, none of that matters. I'm not here to talk about the virus. I actually do not care about it. In regards to the agenda, it's going to be interesting, though, because I'll say this. A lot of people, they had COVID fatigue, and they wore people out with all that. So I believe they know this. So they obviously have a plan to get people drawn in. And I believe that will actually be death. I do not believe in anything that they're saying, and I am not changing my lifestyle at all, but I am planning for disruptions. This would just provide more strain on the world economy, and it removes all the scapegoats. So as the world economy comes under severe strain, it's convenient for things to slow down because of fear. They'll stop traveling, and they'll slow the world down because of this virus. And that's a strategy I believe that they're taking. They have the World Cup coming here in June, so it's easy to see how they could use that event and use it as a narrative for the virus spreading now all around the world. I don't really care about what they're actually saying. I personally believe that they're just creating a narrative for other things that are happening. I personally believe, and this is my personal belief, that there's an expiration date for many people that took that first solution during the other pandemic. And I believe that the deaths that come will be highly correlated to those that took that solution. But rather than blaming it on that, they can use this narrative, push more fear, and implement other controls. There have been many different examples of predictive programming with this virus, so it's clear that whatever they're doing is very much controlled, and it's about agendas. If you're in the truth, you should be detached from this, and I will explain that more in a second. The second thing happening is Trump disclosing aliens, or however they're framing it. I don't even know. They're using a lot of different words.
It's Disclosure Day in D.C. The truth is out there, and today, out in the open. After the White House started its rollout of the long-awaited UFO and extraterrestrial life files, officials telling Fox it was this question from our very own Peter Doocy that led us here.
Barack Obama said aliens are real. Have you seen any evidence of non-human visitors to Earth?
When he gave classified information, he's not supposed to be doing that.
No aliens are real.
Well, I don't know if they're real or not. I can tell you he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that.
Well, if the president can declassify anything that he wants to, so
I may get him out of trouble by declassifying. We know illegal aliens are real. Yeah, like illegal. Only illegals.
That's how it started. Here's how it's going. Trump writing on Truth Social today, in part, with these new documents and videos, the people can decide for themselves what the hell is going on. Have fun and enjoy. After all,
yeah, so he's giving a mass disclosure, But as the War Department states, the exposure is being done in segments. They're not dumping it all out at once. They're giving it in segments. Again, I really don't have much to say about it except my overall point in regards to the virus and its alien agenda. But before I express these thoughts, the major thing I want to discuss is what has been alluded to by this fake pastor, Perry Stone.
I want you to give me your attention for the next few moments of something that came to my attention very, very recently. I had a friend that sent me a text message. I was in a meeting, a weekend meeting, preaching Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning. And he said, Perry, can you give me a call? I have some information that has come to my attention. Of course, when a friend of yours does that you know quite well, you have no idea what information they're talking about. And I'm not going to go into great detail, but there were a large number of pastors that had been invited to go to a certain state to hear some men in the United States government and others share with them a concern that they had. And this particular man, and I'll not name him, and then we may end up doing some teachings with him or having an event at his church. He has a great church. But he said, Perry, what they're about to release, from what we're hearing, there's going to be a release concerning aliens and concerning unidentified flying object spacecraft, that some of the people who were in the meeting were telling us as pastors, you need to prepare your people and you need to get ready to answer them for what you're about to hear being released. And some of it has to do with crafts that have been discovered that are not allegedly a part of our planet, and the materials they're made of are not a part of our planet. Very strange reptilian-looking creatures and other things that almost sound like something out of a sci-fi movie or an Orson Welles book. And so here's what he was sharing with me. We discussed a little bit, what are these things that are appearing? Steven Spielberg is about to do a movie, and he's basing it on some of what I've been told, the information that he's come across, that he's had research presented to him. So it's like a sci-fi movie, but it's not a sci-fi movie. Now,
these are the pastors that people are really believing. They believe that these people are really spreading the gospel and they're true. It's really absurd to me, but whatever. So pastors are being brought in to discuss what Trump is bringing forth. Now, based on that first data dump, there wasn't much to speak about, so we know there's more to come. And being that they already now committed to releasing information about all this, we can confirm that they actually are going to be using this alien narrative. I spoke about it many times over the years that it's possible that they speak about this. We can confirm now that they actually are. I've been saying this for a long time. They have a plan for Christians. And what this pastor has said confirmed exactly what I've been saying. Let me ask you, do you remember what happened during COVID? According to Christianity Today, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the United States government provided an unusual lifetime to tens of thousands of Christian organizations and churches through Forgiven Paycheck Protection Program, PPP loans, under the CARES Act. That aid amounted to roughly $7 billion in forgiven loans, according to an analysis of federal data by Christianity Today. Most of that funding, about $5 billion, went to churches, Christian churches. The government helped keep many of these churches open. The United States government helped keep the Christian church open, which is why many of them are still open this day. So the United States government is directly responsible for the gospel being spread in this country. Is that what people really believe? Anyways, during that pandemic, many churches became hubs for the pandemic response. They hosted community testing and vaccine administration sites directly in the churches. They made specific partnerships with local officials. They used the churches to spread their solution. So what am I getting at? They were a major source for the system to be able to get access to the people. And look, Now aliens and UFOs are being discussed, and the first thing they do is call on the pastors. They are informing us that pastors have been brought in to discuss the implications and to prepare the masses for what is going to be released. Influential pastors are claiming that they have been told to prepare their followers for shocking revelations about UFOs, which may upend belief in the Bible. According to an article from Daily Mail, it says, this reported meeting involved approximately 6 Christian leaders, including Bishop Alan Didio of the Revival Nation Church, who confirmed that he was a part of the extraordinary gathering. Didio said, it seems like half a dozen people were gathered in an Airbnb in the mountains of Tennessee discussing an investigation that's going on in the United States government against crimes they have committed in the process of retrieving a reverse engineering technology from non-human intelligence. The meeting also went forward to discuss the propaganda plan that was in place leading up to the disclosure. Another reported attendee, American evangelist and podcaster Tony Merkel, added the government officials who held the meeting expressed concerns about the impact of UFO disclosure on organized religion. Merkel said, I came in contact with these guys more than a year ago now, and I've been in touch with them, communicating with them, and their heart is to prepare the body of Christ for what's coming. These guys are a part of, let's just say, they're Christians in intelligence operations, and they're specifically geared towards, initially, it was to gather evidence and data on what's actually going on behind the scenes within the disclosure community. The article said the 3 pastors also warned that when the United States government finally releases the historic report about UFOs and extraterrestrials, it will not just be surprising news. They believe it will be part of a plot designed to pull people away from faith in Jesus. On the internet, there's a lot of discussion about all of this, and there's many different thoughts. I haven't actually really gone through all of it. I just see a lot of headlines and a lot of people talking about it. None of the details really matter to me, really. I am not researching in full what is being said because I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. The point that I'm trying to make clear is that there is a plan for Christians. I've been explaining this for a great deal of time, and you can see just from this small bit of disclosure that there is indeed a plan for Christians. That's why the first thing is getting the churches involved. You have to understand those that are disillusioned in Christianity, they are going to come up against a great deal of barriers because they are tied to many different falsehoods. From being here during the tribulation when they thought they were going to be raptured, to not having the faith to get them through the struggles that are coming because they don't even know the God that they serve. All these agendas that they were trying to escape from, they're going to come running towards them. And we see through multiple examples how the government works with the churches to push their agendas. Christians live in a great deal of false doctrines, and there is a plan for Christians to lead them into the belief that leads to the beast. And for the many that do not attach to those lies, they still will have to survive what's happening because they were never in the truth. So while people can search out the truth today and learn the truth today under a small amount of pressure, it's going to be extremely difficult when you're dealing with all this tribulation and you're receiving judgment from Yahuwah.
Not all damage shows up in photos. Been Verified can reveal collision and insurance reported damage. Buy with confidence like millions of smart drivers. See damage history today.
So look, with all these things occurring, it's clear that we're moving into a new phase at this point. And for me, it's a blessing because Yahuwah is making it very easy for me to discern who loves him and who hates the truth. And that's what I'm walking in right now. Understand, anyone coming talking to me about aliens and being confused about it, or they're concerned about what's being spoken about in regards to aliens, or they're trying to speak to me about fear about the virus, anyone personally coming to me talking about this stuff, they are being cut off. That's a red line that I am drawing, and I am absolutely unapologetic about it. I'm going to explain. Let me just say this. I've spoken about a great deal of things over the years. I want it to be understood that I have never been playing any games about any of these things that I've ever been talking about. I mean what I say, and I live through what I believe. I am mentally aware of what is happening and why it's happening. I try to live in the truth. I live in the reality of things. I'm not looking at both sides and waiting to see who wins. I am firm on Yahuwah's side, and I'm firm on what he has shown me over the years. And because of this, Yahuwah, he has removed a great deal of people and things from my life that were just not good for me. Now, in certain situations, I have allowed certain people to still have access to me, not many, but a few, because I hope that they grow and accept the truth. But this right here, this is a red line for me. Now, that's not to say that if anyone ever wants to understand Yahuwah and his truth, that I will not be there for them. I will always witness to someone who desires to know our Father and submit to him. But all this right here, that's a personal red line, and I'm going to explain why. You have to understand, at some point, you really have to stand firm in this truth and stand firm in the word. The word has prepared us for all this. I've discussed this in many different videos. It's the strong delusion. In 2 Thessalonians, it says, the coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteous deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth that they might be saved. And for this reason, Elohim will send them strong delusion, that they should believe the lie, that they all may be condemned who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. That's 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 9 through 12. There's a lawless one coming. We call him the Antichrist in our modern day. Everything in this world today is about leading up to him. Trump assuming leadership over the world, the great divide with politics all over the world, the lack of young leaders and the abundance of old men and old ideas, the war in Iran, COVID, the solution, the United Nations assemblies, the global citizens festivals, wars, economic collapses, climate change, cryptocurrencies, artificial intelligence, etc., etc. All these things happening in this world, too many to list or mention. All of these things are being put in place in order to bring about the coming of the lawless one. It is a massive world system built on lies and false foundations that were created in order to drive the world that is stuck in the strong delusion, to drive them into condemnation. All these things leading to the lawless one, as the scripture says, are all according to the working of Satan, with all his power, signs, and lying wonders. Remember, Satan deceives the whole world. Why is he deceiving the whole world? In order to lead us to the coming of the lawless one, his false Messiah. And those who follow the strong delusion are those who are perishing because they did not receive the love of the truth that they might be saved. Those that follow and believe in the lie will be condemned because they did not love the truth and Yahweh's righteousness. And so sadly, there are many that we all know that will perish and be condemned. I read many of the comments that many of you talk to your family and your friends. You try to send them videos, you try to talk to them, and they're not listening. They do not love the truth. At some point, Yahweh is going to judge this. You have to understand, he's merciful and he is just, but he also plans vengeance. And if they do not love him, they will be a part of that judgment. This is why we've been warning them. And so what we're seeing is the strong delusion. It's being stepped up now. I mean, aliens, come on, please. I mean, with this virus, I mean, they already ran the same script already with COVID. And to let us know what they're doing, they left traces of their propaganda and predictive programming, leaving it easy to discern and see. Then this whole thing about aliens has absolutely nothing to do with those of us in the truth. We know about the Nephilim, and everyone paying attention should expect that this all leads to a confirmation of the Antichrist, the one who is set to fix the world and change the world, how special he is, how special his blood is. We've seen an extreme amount of predictive programming about the chosen one in all these different movies. But nothing that they're talking about has anything to do with the truth. It is very clearly a distraction. It's very easy to see if you're attached to what our Father has actually proclaimed in his word about our future and what we're waiting for. So if you're in the truth, these things will not have anything to do with you. But if you're not in the truth, these lies will be able to come upon you and overtake you. I will not deal with one question of someone needing their faith confirmed because of their confusion about aliens. I will not deal with one question on it. And listen, even if you don't fully believe it, but just a small part of you might be just entertaining it, it's because you're compromised. And so for me, like I'm saying, anyone that shows compromise is absolutely being cut off from me. You have no access to me. The truth is not for you. It is said that Yahweh will send strong delusion to condemn those who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. And so anyone attached to these lies is just telling me that these people rejected the truth, and now Yahweh is condemning them for it. I will not answer questions. I will not deal with their concerns. I am making a split between me and those who do not love Yahuwah and his truth. I am not here to preserve these relationships with family and friends if they do not love my God and do not want to abide in his truth, especially if they say that they do. And so I am happy about these agendas, very honestly, because it will help me easily discern better and know who is trapped in the lie. Please do not get me wrong, as if it's not sad and it's not a sad reality for many people that they are condemned. But I am here to protect my family and this ministry, and that does not allow for any type of compromise. So listen, if you really live through the word, it can help you navigate in this world. You don't have to second guess everything. It's time to be strong in your convictions. This is the time right now to be strong in your convictions. No half in it. Well, maybe they're thinking like this, or maybe that we need to understand more about what they're thinking. Maybe this is the time to minister. If they want to know about Yahuwah and they want to know about his truth, speak to them. But this is not a time to be playing in their delusions. If you believe in the word, really live through it. Now listen, if these lies drive people to want to understand Yahuwah and his word, please be there for them. I'm going to be there for them if they want to know more about Yahuwah, but I will not entertain any of these lies. And I just really feel sorry for the people who are caught in them. But I'm not going to risk my peace for their attachment to falsehoods. They've rejected the truth for too long, and now they're caught up. This is judgment from Yahuwah that he has allowed for them to have because they do not love him or his truth. It's a sad reality, but living in the truth about things is better than living compromised. The truth is that judgment is upon this world. This is what you're seeing. There are many people that live in the lies that do not have a bright future. You just got to get over it. It's important that you pick your side and understand what you are living for. Protect your family. The sad part is that some of you are going to forsake Yahuwah because you want to keep your family and your friends around that actually hate him. That's a mistake on your part. Remember what the Messiah said. Do not think that I came to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's enemies will be those of his own household. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he who does not take his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. He who finds his life will lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake will find it. Matthew chapter 10, verses 34 through 39. If you're not willing to stand in the truth and you've put your relationships over Yahuwah, you will wind up attaching yourself to those who are condemned. And it's important that everyone who is kingdom-minded get their priorities together and understand what is most important to them. Yes, it is sad that many of our family and friends are in condemnation. Yes, it is. But we did not make that choice for them. They are making the choice themselves because they do not love the truth. And the thing is that weakness will make you make excuses for them and tolerate a lot of things you should not tolerate. For me personally, it's not happening. I know that I've taken a great deal of time with anyone who knows me personally. I've told them where I stand and what I believe in. And so if they show attachments to this strong delusion, I know they never prioritize Yahuwah, and now they're being judged for it. So for me, I'm placing a very strong red line as these agendas are coming forth. I look at it as a blessing that Yahuwah is helping us with our discernment. I am preparing for the kingdom. This is my priority. And I know what is going to come with all that. I encourage many of you to get into reality now and understand what is coming. So when it starts, the realization of it does not overpower you. I don't know how many of you experienced people dying from COVID during that pandemic, but I would expect to see people that you know and love. I would expect for many of you to deal with certain situations that you're not going to be happy with. It's likely that that virus is blamed, but I believe it's something else. And we're not even going to be able to talk about it, really. Either way, all of it is judgment. It's judgment on the wicked that are not attached to Yahuwah. If you are attached to Yahuwah and his will, he has promised to guard you and protect you. If you understand what he has promised us, walking in fear is a slap in the face to him. Get serious. You know a lot of your family and your friends have been rejecting our Father. Please understand that he does judge these things. So if you're worried about your family, put it on the line for them right now. Don't try to keep peace so much that you don't say anything, because if this will lead you to feel guilt later on, you're only hurting yourself. Put it all on the line right now. Do you see all these agendas that are forming? I mean, they are releasing the X-Files at the same time they're bringing back another virus using the same narrative they just ran. This stuff is way too obvious. It's important that you choose Yahuwah and his truth and you live in it. It will be easier to discern who is in the strong delusion for certain once these agendas fully take shape. And if you truly just understand that the people that believe these lies, they rejected the truth, it can help you comprehend and deal with what is happening. Remember, it's prophesied, for this reason, Elohim will send them strong delusion that they should believe the lie, that they all may be condemned who did not believe the truth, but have pleasure in unrighteousness. Remember that Satan deceives the whole world. He does not stand in truth, and when he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own resources because he is the father of lies. Satan is the god of this world, blinding the minds of those who are perishing. He transforms himself into an angel of light, and he has ministers who preach and teach about Messiah, but they are actually ministers for his deceptions. He is our adversary, and he walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he can devour. So if you're not vigilant and sound-minded, he very likely can devour you. The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all of Satan's lying wonders, powers, and signs. He has built a world based on lies. Everything is a lie in order for people to follow Satan and receive the lawless one that is coming. Your only way out of this is living in the truth. Then Yahusha said to those Jews who believed him, if you abide in my word, you are my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. John chapter 8, verses 31 through 32. It is the truth that shall make you free. A part of our spiritual armor is the belt of truth. Yahusha prayed to our Father, sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I also have sent them into the world. And for their sakes, I sanctify myself, that they also may be sanctified by the truth. John chapter 17, verses 17 through 19. If you live in the truth, you do not have to worry about the lies. So many of these people are going to fall for the delusions because they don't truly know the Messiah. They don't truly understand why he came. They don't truly understand Yahuwah. So when these things come about, they're going to be easily led astray. If you know the truth, you will not be led astray by it. Remember, love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 6. So if you're a hypocrite who claims to be a follower of Yahusha, our Messiah, but live in lies because it's easier to deal with, or you don't understand our Father or our enemy, that is, and it will be, completely on you. Yes, your churches have not taught you about our enemy and about the strong delusion. But if you searched out our Father yourself and did not put your faith in the hand of others, you would give his spirit room to work in you and move. So it's time to come out of the lies. It's time to come out of this false religion of Christianity. It's time to come out of religion, period, and focus on relationship that's built on faith and obedience. I want you to remember, Yahuwah is near to all who call upon him, to all who call upon him in truth. He will fulfill the desire of those who fear him. He also will hear their cry and save them. Yahuwah preserves all who love him, but all the wicked he will destroy. My mouth shall speak the praise of Yahuwah, and all flesh shall bless his holy name forever and ever. Psalm chapter 145, verses 18 through 21. Call upon him in truth and reject the lies. The more you start yearning and hungering for his truth, the more he will remove the scales off your eyes, and you will begin to see the strong delusion that you have lived in since you were born. This is real, and it's all heading to an agenda that we are seeing coming right together right now. You have been told and you have been warned. And whatever you decide to do, it is all on you. For you that desires to live for the Most High, please, no, you must live in the truth. You must actually walk in your faith. So reject the lies and come to our Father in spirit and truth and serve him the way he desires and how he has declared according to his word. For all of you who have been watching this channel for a long period of time, you have been prepared for this moment. It's time that you walk in it. Do you see what's happening in this world? You don't have to do what I'm doing, but I am drawing a red line. How you deal with it, that's up to you. I will do whatever Yahweh calls me to do, but I will not be dealing with their lies. That's why this video is not about proving what's true or false. I don't care about what they are saying at all. I'm just here to tell you that if you believe those lies, it's because you're in condemnation and you need to repent and turn to Yahuwah today. This is the strong delusion. People don't like me because I speak boldly on these things. I don't care, and I'll stand on it. Right now, you need to build yourself up in the truth and live according to the word. But if you're fighting for the lies, I'm against you. And that's as simple as I can be. I'm here for the kingdom of Yahuwah, and that's what I care about. And I'm stating my red line now so there is no confusion. I'm very excited about these times, and I praise our Father for making this all very easy to discern. I mean, aliens? Really? There's no such thing as outer space. Also, please be careful on how you're searching online, how you're scrolling through social media. Now is not the time to be searching for what's happening here and there. Be careful of your algorithms. Try to limit your exposure to all these things. These algorithms are dangerous. You do not need to be looking to see what everyone is exposing, seeking out conspiracies to see what's hitting here and what's hidden there. Right now, you need to be in preservation mode. The only thing that should matter to you is being prepared for what's coming and being mentally and spiritually equipped to deal with the agendas. Right now, the only thing that mattered should be the word, knowing his word and knowing how to live through it, understanding his promises and understanding him. The time of searching conspiracies has long been over. We get it. People with wealth and power worship the devil, and they're committed to bringing about a satanic agenda on earth. Everything mainstream leads to the lawless one. We get it. What you should focus on is the truth of the word, so spend time in the word so that you're not carried away by lies and false doctrines. If he is sending strong delusion to those who have pleasure in unrighteousness and they rejected the truth, fight this by loving the truth. So focus on living in the truth and understand you are in a season where many people will need to be cut off. If you're not able to do that, you run a real big risk of being carried in the same direction that they are being carried in, or being emotionally attached to consequences of their rebellion. It's time to get serious. Put Yahuwah first over everyone and everything. Prepare for Yahuwah because things are escalating. Your faith is going to be tested. Make sure you pass the test. Please continue to grow in knowledge and truth. Live your life in the truth and stay out of the lies, because the kingdom of Yahuwah is truly at hand.
Kofi, follow me.